As the season is getting closer and closer to ending, the Saints will have to start looking at possible head coaching candidates to fill their open vacancy after firing Dennis Allen earlier this season during a 7-game losing streak. And with the NFL regular season about a month away from being over, we're starting to hear some names of coaches in articles and reports that the Saints could possibly be interested in hiring or at least interviewing when that time comes. We have names like Aaron Glenn, Vance Joseph, and possibly Ben Johnson on that list. And on top of that, a report came out talking about what the future holds for general manager Mickey Loomis in the New Orleans Saints. We got a lot to talk about, so why don't we just dive into it, but first check out this ad from GameTime. I'm excited to be partnering up with GameTime. GameTime is the best place to get tickets, especially last minute. And with the NFL season officially here, make sure you guys check them out. Download the GameTime app and you'll see how easy it is and how cheap their tickets are. And their GameTime picks makes it easy to find cheap tickets. If you find a lower price on another website for that specific seat, they'll cover 110% of the difference. They also have photos of each seat, so that way you know what the view is going to look like from where you're sitting. Just download the GameTime app and use my promo code TRUEFAN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. What time is it? It's game time. And if you want to help support me and the channel in any other ways, you can just click my link tree down in the description. There's lots of options for you there as well. Alright, thanks for tuning in. Let's get back to the video. One of the biggest talking points regarding the New Orleans Saints right now and for the offseason is who will be their head coach in 2025. There's obviously a lot of names out there, a lot of names that people are going to be interested in as a fan. Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions, their offensive coordinator, has been, the number one guy for the past 2 years. Bill Belichick is available. Some people might be interested in him in terms of being a fan. Mike Vrabel's another name. There are some pretty big name candidates out there that a lot of people are going to want the Saints to interview. But are any of these guys actually realistic for the Saints to hire? I know for a fact Mike Vrabel probably will not be going to the Saints. I don't think Bill Belichick will, but I could be proven wrong on that. I really don't know about Ben Johnson. But when you look at the Saints head coaching position in general, in situation compared to other head coaching jobs, it isn't really the best one out of the bunch. When you look at the Saints situation compared to like the Bears or the Jets, the Saints are at the bottom of those three teams. They have no money to spend in free agency. They don't really have a lot of young, talented players. And if they do, then a lot of them might be on their way out soon because of contract situations. They're relying on a lot of older players. And the Saints aren't a head coach away from making the playoffs. You have Derek Carr as your quarterback. This is a basically retool, rebuilding kind of situation. And whoever's taking this job is probably thinking, or they probably know that possibly in 3 years they could be getting fired from this job. So the Saints situation isn't like the Bears where you have Caleb Williams and DJ Moore, or the Jets where you have Breece Hall and Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. The Saints situation is not that good. But chances are that the Saints will probably end up getting one of the coaches or candidates that they want or desire. It may not be their number one guy. They're not going to be on anyone's number one list of teams where guys want to go and be a head coach. And the Saints are not going to be getting their number one guy. But chances are they might be getting their, their number 3 option or their third favorite guy. So who are some possible names then to keep in mind moving forward when it comes to the Saints head coaching position? Well, as we all know, Mickey Loomis said after the firing of Dennis Allen that they were not going to be focusing on the head coaching position or open vacancy during the regular season. The full quote is, "There's plenty of time for that when the season ends. Our focus has got to be on our team, our players, our coaches, our staff, and look, you learn more about who you have and who the people are that you're working with in adversity that you do when things are going well." I don't have an issue with this quote. Now, that was 4 or 5 weeks ago. We're in December. The Saints are not making the playoffs. The Saints better be starting to get a group of names, some candidates together for who they want to interview in about a month's time. And I truly believe that they are, because we're starting to get reports and possible rumors, and we're hearing some possible names of early head coaching names and candidates for the Saints head coaching position, and I don't think these names get reported or talked about if the Saints don't have some early candidates of who they're talking about or who they might want to interview in January. Albert Breer did an article a few weeks ago. He's one of the bigger national reporters. He did a Q&A mailbag a few weeks ago and was asked about the Saints head coaching position, and he said Aaron Glenn is an early candidate to keep an eye on for the Saints head coaching position, and I think a lot of us saw that one coming. He has ties to the Saints. He was the Saints defensive back coach, I believe, from like 2017 to 2020. I believe he was actually there a little bit longer. I believe he played for the Saints. He's on the lines now, one of the better defensive coordinators, if not the best defensive coordinator in the NFL right now. And he has ties to the Saints front office, Mickey Loomis, Gil Benson, they know him. There's obvious ties to him right there, making him an obvious head coaching candidate for the Saints. That report in mailbag was a few weeks ago, but just yesterday an article was posted by Jeremy Fowler of ESPN talking about the possible future of Saints general manager Mickey Loomis, while also listing some possible names of who could be in the mix for the Saints head coaching spot. The article says the early belief among league insiders is that Mickey Loomis has a good chance to remain as Saints general manager. That's rather unfortunate. That's not 100%, but that's what people in the know of these sorts of things are predicting. The Saints have traditionally valued connectivity, familiarity, which could be a factor in the interview process. Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, a defensive back coach from 2016 to 2020 for the Saints, is expected to get a look for the Saints head coaching position. Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady, a Saints offensive assistant from 2017 to 2018, and he was also the LSU offensive coordinator in 2019 with that Joe Burrow-led team, is also a logical name as well. And an intriguing candidate would be Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, who is from New Orleans area and is currently coaching with Sean Payton right now. The Saints will likely cast a wide net, but I think their tendency toward familiarity is noteworthy. Main takeaways from this, or at least the first takeaway from this, is dang it, Mickey Loomis might be staying as general manager. Outside of Dennis Allen, I think Mickey Loomis was also a problem. One, because he wasn't willing to fire Dennis Allen and see a problem and make a change when there was a problem. Two, I just think the time of him being a general manager has passed. I don't care if he gets promoted to like the vice president role or the president of whatever for the Saints, but I just don't think he is a good general manager anymore. Look at the draft picks over the years. Look at the way he's been running the team. Look at the candidates he interviewed. The last time the Saints were trying to find a head coach, he kind of predetermined who he wanted to hire, which impacted who they interviewed in that process. I just think the time has passed him, and he clearly doesn't say, the best things when it comes to the media, like look beyond the results, the chewing gum, comparing Dennis Allen to Bill Belichick. I just think the time has passed for Mickey Loomis. I don't think he's a good general manager anymore. He's stubborn. They should have been rebuilding from when Drew Brees retired, and now the Saints are just stuck in this endless cycle of mediocrity. I just don't think he's been doing a good job as the general manager of the New Orleans Saints. Basically, since Drew Brees and Sean Payton left, he hasn't really done much without those two guys. Now, the second thing that stands out to me from this little article is the continuity, man. Continuity. Now, Jeremy Fowler did not specify or say that he was hearing that these guys are going to get opportunities or interviews from the Saints, but says that the continuity and familiarity is noteworthy and that these guys all have some ties to the Saints. They're all doing an excellent job at their jobs at the moment, and it wouldn't be surprising if the Saints gave these guys an interview or gave them a look. And obviously, you have to add Darren Rizzi to this mix. He's going to get an interview as well. All these guys have ties to the Sean Payton old regime, and I'm not against, Aaron Glenn. I think he's an excellent defensive coordinator and could be a great head coach. I got nothing against Rizzi. I have a little bit against Vance Joseph and a little bit against Joe Brady. I wouldn't love those hires. But at some point, it just has to be a little bit tiring of Mickey Loomis chasing the exact same thing that he was doing in 2006. Like, just start fresh. Move on from the Sean Payton era, like he did with the offensive staff this season. Move on from Pete Carmichael, brought in Clint Kubiak. Hasn't been the best, but it looks better and seems better than it has been over the last 3 years offensively in terms of the scheme. I think it might be time for the Saints to move on, get a clean slate, and start over in this new era instead of trying to preach continuity and familiarity and continue to have these Sean Payton regime guys. But again, that's not me being anti-Aaron Glenn or anti-Rizzy. It's just a personal preference. I wouldn't be mad if, Aaron Glenn was hired as the head coach. It just feels like maybe something new and fresh is needed for the New Orleans Saints moving forward. Now, as of today, there is another name to add to this mix of head coaching candidates, which I know a lot of Saints fans, including myself, and I'm sure all of you would be excited to hear about. And that name is Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, who has been a head coaching hot name over the last 2 to 3 years now. A report came out today saying ESPN's Dan Graziano said the Chicago Bears, the New York Jets, and the New Orleans Saints are all expected to have Ben Johnson on their radar for their head coaching positions. Now, as of right now, those are the only 3 head coaching spots available. Chances are there's going to be quite a bit of other ones, like possibly the Jacksonville Jaguars, possibly the New England Patriots, the New York Giants is another team, the Dallas Cowboys. There's going to be a lot of other teams that are looking for a head coach. So right now there's only 3 teams interested in Ben Johnson, but there's obviously going to be more open positions in a month also interested in Ben Johnson. Now, something I would like to ask is, do you think Ben Johnson would even come to the Saints? In my opinion, I don't think he would, because last season he declined going to the Washington Commanders, who had a crap ton of cap space. They had the number 2 pick. He would have got to select whatever quarterback he wanted, rebuild the Commanders from the ground up, bring over his staff, and he declined. He's waiting for the right opportunity in the right situation to where he knows he won't be fired in 2 to 3 years. The Commanders were a team on the rise. The Saints are not a team on the rise. They're a team that is declining. They don't have young, talented players, or if they do, it's only a few of them, or they're hurt. And if he declined that job last season, I don't know why he'd take a job where you're kind of stuck with Derek Carr as your quarterback unless you take on a huge cap hit. You're stuck with basically paying no free agents. Really, the only thing the Saints would have to offer in terms of what would be attractive is if they lose out and end up with a high draft pick to attract Ben Johnson. But even then, would he view that as a good situation? I really don't think so. And who knows, maybe Ben Johnson decides to stay in Detroit again, or possibly if the Bengals fire Zach Taylor, he goes over there and he gets to be the head coach of Joe Burrow and coach Jamar Chase and have Trey Hendrickson. Maybe that's what he's been waiting for. But I just don't think the Saints situation is one Ben Johnson would be interested in. Now, yesterday, Albert Breer also mentioned some things that Ben Johnson is actually interested in and what he looks for in an organization as to whether or not he would consider going there. This report says Ben Johnson is taking a different approach this hiring cycle. He won't chase interviews. If he takes an interview, it will be with the intentions of taking the job. So one, if he ends up taking an interview with the Saints, that means he actually wants to coach for the Saints. Now, we probably have like a month until that time comes, but that's something to keep in mind. And also, Breer adds that Ben Johnson has 2 criteria in the interview process: organizational alignment, in particular between the head coach and GM, and recognition from the organization on what went wrong previously and their willingness to fix it. Now, when I'm looking at this, I don't know if the Saints, or at least Mickey Loomis, has the recognition on what went wrong previously. He still thinks Dennis Allen is a great head coach who really just got done wrong with injuries, and Gil Benson acted too fast. So I don't even think that they crossed this line right here. As for this one, organizational alignment, the GM and the owner are willing to give whoever the head coach is all the money they need, all the spending. They will spend all the money they want for their head coach if they want to. Now, something I do think maybe the Saints have going for them in terms of getting another head coach is time and patience. We got frustrated that the Saints didn't fire Dennis Allen in year 1, that they didn't fire him in year 2, and that it took a 7-game losing streak in year 3 to fire him. But the Saints being patient and waiting to fire him and giving him a fair opportunity, maybe someone like Ben Johnson looks at that and is like, if they're willing to give Dennis Allen 2.5 years, then chances are they're going to be patient and give me a fair opportunity to fix everything and do the best that I can. So Maybe not even Ben Johnson, maybe another coach views the Saints situation as good because the Saints front office is going to give them time to fix and make this roster completely theirs. That was just something I found interesting regarding the Ben Johnson situation and whether or not he would take an interview with the Saints and that the Saints are interested in him. I guess we'll find out if he would take a job with the Saints if he does an interview at some point in the offseason. I really just hope the Saints do a thorough and fair search this time, expand their horizons, bring some new guys in, some young guys, some old guys, and don't have a predetermined favorite like they did last time in Dennis Allen. Don't interview a whole bunch of just Sean Payton regime guys and guys who have ties to the organization. Interview some guys who you know absolutely nothing about. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Mickey Loomis and Gail Benson need to stop being so comfortable with familiarity. Sometimes having new ideas is good. I know it's a little early, but let me know who you think the Saints should hire as their head coach, at least interview. Would you prefer an offensive coach, defensive, special teams, Dan Campbell type, or just a motivator kind of guy who doesn't really specialize in anything? Would you want a players coach, a first-time head coach, experienced guy? Let me know all the details down in the comments. Subscribe to my channel, Cash Sports, for more daily NFL content. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Have a good one. Peace.